Once again, I'm quite shocked that our characters just having a casual conversation with each other wasn't like a free turn. It's like what I said in my last episode review, where normally when our characters sit down to talk about their problems, or, they're just talking about, little things here and there, or character progression, development, usually the villain of the story is just sitting there in idle mode, not doing anything, no progress whatsoever. But we see that once again, to where the actions of Naofumi and his entire group, everyone there that were talking, discussing their problems, the raid shield, all of that, the Pope used that to his advantage to charge his move for he could strike at them at the halfway to 75% through the episode. So, gotta say, once again, pretty happy with that. But I will get into more details in a second. So, I want to be straight up, okay? I like this episode. It is a good episode. But there is one fundamental flaw with this episode that I am not the biggest fan of. And I want to get it out of the way before I get into the really good stuff of this episode, because there's a lot of good in this episode, and I really enjoyed this episode. But the one bad thing about this episode is the whole concept of Naofumi losing himself once again, which I have no problem with him struggling to use the raid shield, okay? That's fine by me. However, him using the raid shield and then having him go through the entire cycle again, what he went back through like many episodes ago when like he had to be pulled back when he was in the middle of the second wave, and we had Philo and we had Raftalia. They had to help him come to his senses once again. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is I don't think we really needed the cycle again of Naofumi trying to realize what he has and how these individuals around him have really made him have meaning in his life. I just don't think we needed that. It was just kind of like reinstating what the audience already knows. We are fully aware of how much Naofumi cares about his party, how his party cares about him, their friendship, their love for each other as family, etc., etc. We're fully aware of this. And I think even Naofumi himself, because we know he's not dumb, he definitely is someone that's already aware of this. I mean, like I said, I'm fine with him losing himself, but just going through the entire reenactment of just, him realizing what he has, I'm just like, no, I feel like that was kind of waste of time, because that entire scene, honestly, was just recap, which, once again, I have no problem with recap, especially like how last week's episode was done, with it was pretty much being recap, and there was some recap in this episode, but this recap wasn't necessarily needed because it did not serve to progress anything whatsoever, because at the very least the recap in the last episode, it was kind of getting everybody up to speed of what it means for Naofumi to set aside his anger against these individuals. But in this episode, we didn't need that recap because, we already are fully aware of what he's been through and what, how he feels about his party and how his party feels about him. So it was wasted time. It was honestly there just to extend the runtime to 20 minutes. Because if it wasn't for that, this episode would have been a hell of a lot shorter than it was. So, yeah, that's my biggest problem. That's my biggest problem with the episode. Besides that, it's a pretty good episode. So, I'm going to drop that for now. Anyways, to get into the good. Okay, so, Naofumi. He did something very savage to the Pope. I'm actually shocked right now because I figured, even though the Pope is the big bad, I figured he was going to get imprisoned or something was going to happen. I didn't think, Naofumi would be the one to, let's say, end the man. I did not think that was going to be the case. However, that in fact happened. Naofumi used blood sacrifice, which more into that in a second, and he literally had this giant robotic, metal structure come in, clamp on the Pope, and drag him down. And there's a little, frame in between when that's happening. You just see the sheer pain and agony on the Pope's face. And I'm like, oh my god, it's brutal. It's a really brutal moment of the episode. And I was just, shocked. I was like, whoa, is this Rising of the Shield Hero? The Pope just got destroyed by our MC, and just seeing what the hero said, once he was dragged out, he's like, is he okay? Is it done? Is it finished? I'm like, are you seriously asking that question right now? You just saw this man get, destroyed by Naofumi's ability called blood sacrifice. You think that man okay? His glasses literally floated up on top of the pool of blood. So I'm just like, yeah, that man is done. So that's the shocking moment of this episode. I just did not expect to see the Pope handled in that way. Like I said, I could see maybe the Queen coming in and, finishing him off, or one of the other heroes, or maybe Raftalia or Philo, but I did not think Naofumi would be the one to do it. But at the same time, though, it makes sense for him to be able to do it. It kind of explains, conclusion to his rage. Because, once again, when we really take a moment to think about it, the Pope is technically responsible for everything that's happened in Naofumi thus far. Yes, mine was someone that did do a lot of crap at the beginning of the story, but it's thanks to her being so naive and being able to be manipulated by the Pope and the three-hero church is what caused Naofumi to be in his position. So, technically, Naofumi getting rid of the Pope like he did was him getting his vengeance. So, that's interesting, and I didn't think Naofumi would actually get what he needed most. He finally got rid of the very individual that ruined his life in this world. So, that's a food for thought. Anyways, let's talk about the situation with the Queen. So, the Queen, she, pops up. By the way, I gotta say, she, liking her character so far, love her design, and her coming in like she did for Naofumi, I'm just like, okay, I know you're introducing yourself, but could you not help a man out? Could you not help out my boy Naofumi? He's sitting there bleeding out on the ground, and I'm just thinking to myself, this is honestly how support / tanks, or what they go through in games. Because there's been many times I played, let's say, MOBAs, let's say League of Legends, or, Smite, and when I'm playing these two individual games, so you're a tank / support or whatever, and you're in the front line, or any type of game, honestly, if you just happen to be a tank for your, your party, or for, RPG, MMORPG, usually the tank is taking all the damage, obviously, and the healer sometimes, once everything is said and done, you're just sitting there bleeding out like you're dying. You only have, let's say, 50 health out of, 20k health, and you're like, heal me! Heal me! I'm dying here! And just the healer's just like, let me go through the loot real quick. Let me look at what we got here. As you're just sitting there dying out on the floor. I'm like, please, man, I'm dying. You can ninja loot in a minute. Just get me back up. So, honestly, I was like, hashtag relatable in that moment with Naofumi being down, and you just see the Queen popping up, introducing herself, doing her whole little speech and all that, while Naofumi was literally just bleeding out on the ground. I'm just like, come on, just help the man out. Which, by the way, let's talk about blood sacrifice. So, that ability, blood sacrifice, that's a scary move. That's a really, really scary move. He is able to sacrifice his life. Now, we don't really know exactly the percentage, because there is many cases in games to where someone can use their blood, their health pool, to be able to use and empower their abilities. It's something that's very common. And I don't know necessarily exactly what the details of this ability was. For instance, it could either mean that the user of this ability will sacrifice their life to take down an opponent no matter what, which results in basically insta-death, or you sacrifice the majority of your health, and you will technically die if healing is not done soon. There's really no clarification to how the ability necessarily works. So, if I had to assume anything, I'm assuming that the ability probably wipes out maybe Naofumi's, majority of his health. Maybe, 90% of his health to maybe 99% of his health, basically making him effectively one-shot if something isn't done. That's what I think blood sacrifice is, because normally when it comes to tanks having to do damage, usually they have to make a cost. There's a sacrifice for them to be able to do as much damage or even more damage than the DPS, and I'm assuming that is necessarily the case, is that Naofumi had to sacrifice his entire health pool for the ability to tank, just to be able to deal with the opponent. So, it's a powerful ability, and I do wonder if we will see it ever again, or if this is going to be the last time, because it's dangerous. If you don't have a proper healer to get you kind of fixed back up, you're gonna die if you use it. And you would think Naofumi, of all individuals, probably would have read a little bit more into that ability before he used it, because he had no idea the Queen or anyone there would pop up to probably heal him. So, that's the main message there. I just wonder why Naofumi didn't really think too hard about that before he used it. It seems like very soon we're probably going to get the justice that we deserve, or Naofumi's gonna get the justice he deserves, because with the Queen's, arrival, like, she's there finally, she's going to be able to finally set straight on what's kind of happened. She's gonna probably be able to let everybody know that Naofumi was framed, and I expect an apology. Like, honestly, it's still, even this episode in, we still had no apology towards Naofumi. None of the heroes apologized to Naofumi, which angers me a lot. I really expect an apology for them, because honestly, if they don't apologize, I will probably never like them as individual characters, because it just doesn't make sense not to, because they have to realize that they were in the wrong. Another detail, too, to get into is, what the heroes said about Naofumi's shield. It's kind of ironic, really, that they said, your shield, it's so overpowered. It looks so overpowered. And I'm like... Like, it's funny how the tables turn, because if you go back to the beginning, they said the shield is the weakest class, and in reality it is, probably. But it's also fun, too, because it has a different mentality about it than DPS, or ranged DPS, because tanks, they usually have to soak up a lot of damage, and they really kind of navigate the course of the battlefield, really. They kind of determine if things are going to be A-okay. And in this case, Naofumi being told that he has, like, an OP shield, I'm like, no, it's not because he has an OP shield, it's because he's properly taken the time to learn his abilities before he can fight, and you guys just haven't taken the time. You've been rushing for your entire class, not taking the time to learn what you can or cannot do. So yeah, I think it's kind of funny how the tables have turned, and Naofumi is finally starting to get the respect he deserves. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below, and with that, Chibi out.